The Irregulars is a show that was recently released on Netflix that focuses on a group of friends in the world of Sherlock Holmes in 19th century London as strange supernatural things occur. With a side to the Sherlock tales that we've not seen on screen before, it was a ride that I was well and truly ready for and eagerly anticipating. So, after watching season 1, is this show any good, and is it worth watching? Well, let's find out. Before I go ahead, make sure you go over to my Twitter @brainpilot_ and tweet me what show or movie you'd like me to review next. So without further ado, I'm Brainpilot, and here is a review of The Irregulars Season 1. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers, so watch with caution. The story. I'm a huge fan of the Sherlock TV show and also the Sherlock movies, so I was really looking forward to seeing what each episode was going to entail. Set in 19th century London, we follow a group of characters, Beatrice, Jessie, Billy, Leo and Spike, as they are scouted by Dr. John Watson due to there being supernatural things occurring in London. From the first episode, I liked the approach that was taken. The structure of there being this underlying narrative of there being a rip, but also each episode containing their own investigation laddering up to the main arc of the rip and Jessie's powers. I thought the first episode with Rory McCann as the man that was stealing babies due to him losing his own baby showed that there was thought behind this villain's actions and he wasn't just doing it for the sake of it. We saw this with many other villains in the episodes. For example, in the second episode, we saw the haunting looking lady removing people's teeth, controlling them and trying to assassinate the Duke due to actions that happened in her past. And likewise with the Collector, we saw her take on a Dr. Frankenstein vibe as she pieced together her husband with other people's body parts. I found that one extremely interesting, due to the good intentions that she had, but the fact that she had to do wrong to execute what she wanted to achieve. Once we saw many of the sub-arcs with the villains draw to a close, we got to see the main arc of Jessie's mentor from Louisiana, the Linen Man, turn out to be a main villain. It was a twist that I didn't really feel super satisfied with. I wasn't really invested in his character and I found the scenes where him and Jessie were on the ship a little stale. I understand it was for her to be able to seek guidance and realize her potential, but it felt a little boring and slow whenever it would cut to that. In the climax of the show, we see Beatrice and Jessie's mother return from the rip, with the intentions of merging the border and plunging the world into darkness. This was for her to be with her girls again. This again tied into what we saw with many of the other smaller villains in the show. Good intentions, but bad actions with consequences. That was an overarching theme that we kept seeing, and I thought it was all handled in a subtle yet clear way. We saw Jessie finally get the strength to be able to defeat the Linen Man, and we also see her go against what she's always wanted, and sends her mother back into the rip. I thought this made sense. I don't think there could have been another way for the season to end. It had an emotional edge to it, but for some reason I wasn't emotionally attached to these characters like I had been in other shows in the past. Visually, it was a stunning moment with the bright blue hole in the earth. In the end, we see Sherlock also get taken into the rip. John Watts grieve for Sherlock as we find out that he's been in love with him for many years. Again, that was something that became quite predictable as the episodes went on, and I didn't feel it was a huge revelation. The show was hinting to it with the subtle looks in the flashback, so when the revelation did happen, I wasn't that surprised. I like how the show focuses on everybody having to face their demons and that everybody does have something that does make them crumble. Whether that be Billy with the absence of a father figure, Beatrice and Jessie with their yearn for a mother, Leo and his want for normality, or Spike with the thought of not having others by his side. I thought that being at the forefront and used as a driver for the development of the plot and being able to see the good side in the protagonists was a really good way of getting them on side and allowing us to relate to them. Whilst the story was gripping, provided some revelation moments, it did feel a lot like Stranger Things. We have a group of outsiders noticing supernatural things occurring, and they're trying to close a gateway which is allowing demons and darkness into reality. It's very hard not to see the comparison. And if I'm being honest, I do feel Stranger Things does a better job at delivering that storyline. I was a fan of this show, and I would recommend it for its episodic villains and cases that we watch unfold and have to solve as a viewer along with the main cast. The story is strong, but for me it just bears a very similar resemblance to Stranger Things. And instead of it being in Indiana in the 1980s, we are watching it in London in the 1800s. The characters. The cast in this show played a vital role in delivering the story. They each had their own arcs and supported the wider narrative in a relatively evenly split way. Beatrice. Beatrice is one of the two leads in this show, and I think she does a very good job in delivering her role. She is the leader of the family that they're in, and she is the character that is street smart and wants what is best for the group. Thadia Graham's acting at points I did find a little bit much, in terms of the fact that some of the lines did feel a little forced and read. However, I do feel we got a good arc with this character, and the loss that she experienced at the end from not only her mother, but also Leo was sad to watch unfold. Jessie. Jessie is a character that I did really enjoy watching. She is the one that had the powers and the ability to close the rip. We saw her question her strength and the friends that she had, and I thought Darcy Shaw did a great performance. Her journey from episode 1 to the finale was extremely large, and she didn't feel like the same character, and I mean that in a good way. It shows the character went on a tremendous journey. Billy. I would say that I think Billy was one of my favourite characters in this show. The performance by Jojo Macari was convincing, and you really did believe he was on the streets in that era. The battles he had with his demons felt all too real, and you felt the lack of belonging in his earlier days and also in the group following Leo's arrival. Even in his final scene, you feel the absence that he experiences. Leo. Leo was a character that I enjoyed watching in the show. I feel like you understood his need for wanting to live a normal life, and his commitment to the group was something that really showed this character's good intentions. It's a shame that due to Leo, Billy couldn't be with his love Beatrice, but the kind act in helping Billy get out showed his loyalty to the group. I enjoyed watching the love arc between him and Beatrice, and it came to a nice, natural resolution. I'm intrigued to see if he will be returning in season 2. Spike. Spike was most likely the most supporting character in the show. Mikel David did well in his role in playing the cheeky chap that could blag his way out of anything. It was clear that, as he mentioned, he's the skeleton of the group and keeps everyone together. We didn't get to understand that much about Spike, but I feel we will get to understand more in season 2. Dr. John Watson. I was a huge fan of this character. Royce Pearson did a phenomenal job in delivering this mysterious version of Dr. John Watson that at points you hated and at points you really did love. He provided an arrogance that entices you in, and you almost ended up respecting him at points. You felt gutted for him at the end when Sherlock gets stuck in the rib, but we see the softer side to him as he comforts Beatrice in the final shot, showing that this character had developed an immense amount. Sherlock. This is an iteration of Sherlock that I was interested by. It's big boots to fill with the likes of Benedict Cumberbatch and Robert Downey Jr. stepping up to the role. We never really got to see this Sherlock in his prime, only in minor flashbacks, but we saw a Sherlock that was struggling with grief for over a decade and was prepared to do anything to be with his one true love. We saw elements of the witty, intelligent Sherlock that we've come to get used to over the years. But unfortunately, I don't think this Sherlock is one that will be remembered. The Linen Man. If I'm being honest, I wasn't really a massive fan of this character. I didn't anticipate the twist, and it was one that fell a little short. He didn't really seem menacing, and I'm not sure why he had a Louisiana accent specifically, but in the context of the show, it felt a little off. The frustrating thing is as well is that his demise didn't even feel that rewarding. He took a step back and fell off of a cliff. This character could have and should have been a lot stronger in terms of development and revelation. He was there from the beginning, and it's a shame that at the end, it just fell a little short. Final thoughts. Overall, I would say that this show is definitely worth a watch. Although bearing a very similar resemblance to Stranger Things, this show does have a lot of originality. You'll have cases to solve and make you question what you're watching each episode. And the supernatural element is something that I didn't expect from the show, but was pleasantly surprised. The acting from the lead Beatrice does feel a little forced at points, and I feel a little unnatural. But other than those few occasions, all of the performances were on point. I think the soundtrack was a little questionable, and does take you out of the world that we're led to believe exists. I feel an orchestral score would have worked a little better than hits from the past few years, but that is just a personal preference. I would 100% recommend watching this show if you're a fan of Sherlock and looking for a show that can give you Umbrella Academy and Stranger Things vibes. It's not quite as good, but it will fill the void left whilst waiting for the new seasons. So, there you have it. What I thought of the Irregulars Season 1. Do you agree with me? Leave a comment down below. And don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.